Now, I have given you these introductory exercises so that you will know from the beginning that the ultimate desire of all of us is to be able to experience all the levels through which we have created our experiences and ultimately find out who we are and how and why we created all this. We created this in a very systematic way, and as you will learn how systematically we created these realities around ourselves, one after the other, we made each awakening, each rising from one level to another level, an escape from the trap, without realizing that where we awakened up could be another trap. So it was not only the beauty was not only in going down into several levels of consciousness, putting so many cloaks around ourselves, then taking one by one off. The beauty was there was a great joy, and there was a great spiritual bliss in waking up at every level. So instead of having a one-time event, that we were consciousness, we were just the pure consciousness, nothing else, and we suddenly created a world. And then we didn't like the world, or we didn't do something, and we said, now we ascend, the show is over. We went back there. That kind of thing was a one-time event. And how much joy can you get out of it? But if you create dreams within dreams, dreams within dreams, several layers, each layer awakens to a new bliss. It adds the joy of enlightenment several-fold. While we went out to adventure, we went out to have adventure in different kinds of creation, we also made sure that the awakening process is also a bigger adventure. We must be very adventurous consciousness. I mean, it's obvious that the whole thing going down into creation is adventure, and awakening to reality of our own self is also adventure. And it's such a powerful adventure. Just like this world looks real to us. Everything we want to find in this world. We want to find the perfect master, we have to find here. Knowing all the while, from the master's own talks, that the perfect master is inside us. Doesn't help us to know, have true knowledge that the master is inside us, doesn't help us, because our reality is outside. So we look for the master here and get happiness and joy here. We get first bliss right here. Then the master helps us to awaken to a higher level. And we find that was the real secret. This is just a reflection of the reality. And we feel now we've come to our real true home. It's a very great awakening. Till we find out we just got into another awakening and much more lies ahead. Great master used to tell me that, when you go to the astral plane, you won't feel you have come to an astral plane, you'll feel you have come to Sachkhand. Because there is no way to verify that anything more exists. The difference between this experience here and the experience in the awakened astral plane is so remarkable that you think that's the truth. There are millions of people today worshipping the Creator, worshipping God in all the 10,000 names that they are using, and their God is sitting in the astral plane, the Creator. You go to the astral plane, within the astral plane, you can have so many experiences, one after the other, that they can be likened to going to Sachkhand. They can be likened that you have really risen many times. It doesn't mean there's no way to know it. And then, since our mind is still with us, and the mind is used to not only pleasures and pleasurable experiences, it wants a variety of pleasurable experiences. If you give the mind the same pleasure again and again, it gets fed up and bored with that after a while. It says, I want something else. So the mind, when it begins to have the pleasures, which are available in the astral plane, it begins to have more and more, and all the different levels of experiences and pleasures can be created right in the astral plane. Now I want to demystify some ideas about the astral plane. Astral plane is not some other world somewhere that we have to go into heaven somewhere setting up. Astral plane is around us right here. We closed our inner eyes, we have closed our inner senses, so the astral plane has become the physical plane. It's not somewhere else. When we wake up from this, we see the original of which the physical was a copy. It's a reflection. We can connect everything that we saw in the physical with its origin in the astral plane. Therefore, when you see the astral plane and rise to that, at some future time in this week, I will explain more details of these different planes and what experiences you have. But I don't want to say too much so that I don't create what they call auto-suggestion, that you begin to see those in meditation. You should be open to see what comes. But the astral plane has all the things here that you see in the physical plane. Nothing is missing there. The origin of everything that we see here is out there. And much more. It's much vaster than the physical universe that we know of, or that we're beginning to know of more and more. That's much vaster than this one. And movement there is very fast, because you can move with the mind and not with the body. You don't have to use the astral body to move. To change a location, there you have to think of the other location, and you are there. To understand a person, another person, all the persons are there. All of us are there, and many more. Many more people, many more friends, many more who died and are still to be born are still there. And we come across them and we meet them. To talk to them, they have come from experiences in the physical world where, being born in different countries and different cultural groups, they speak different languages, they have different idiom. In the astral plane, they speak their different idioms, but there's an automatic understanding, like there's an automatic translation system set up. Every time a person thinks of something, we can know it in our language that we are using. Ultimately, we begin to feel that we have knowledge of many more languages than we thought we did. We knew all the languages. Otherwise, how are we understanding them? But we begin to understand them. It takes time again, because we have been away from that experience for so long that when we go back, sometimes it looks like we have to relive again. We have been sleeping too long. And so we have to relive that experience again. There is no gravity there. None whatsoever. Gravity is not the law there. Gravity is only a physical law. And physical law is a very important law. It's the most important law probably in physics. But in astral physics, there is no gravity. So what is there is the power to change your form. You can have this look. You can recall what you were in a previous life and take that look. It was not the same look. We have had so many incarnations during one lifetime of an astral life that we had many faces and many body shapes. And it is there that we can change our body shape and still be recognized by people who know us in this life. How do I really explain this strange thing? It has never happened here. It is like somebody wearing a mask, but from the voice you can recognize. You say, oh, I know you are David. Your beard is not able to hide you fully. It's like that you can change your form. When your master appears in the astral plane and becomes your constant companion, he himself changes forms. But the first form you see of your master is exactly the form you saw in the physical plane. So your recognition starts from there, and then you can always recognize him, doesn't matter what form he has. You can always recognize your friends, doesn't matter what form they have. There are institutions there like we have on Earth, in this planet, physical planet, where people are working in libraries, in scientific institutions, in labs. But there's a little difference there. That first of all, those labs are held up somewhere in space. There being no gravity, nothing to hold it down. You could find one institution up in the sky, and you can see it. You can see another one. And what are they connected with? What subjects are they doing? They are advancing on the very subjects we were doing here. That they have a much larger curriculum of what they are doing than what we have here. And we have only a small section of what they are doing. Big scientists whose names you might have known here and who are still there in the astral plane have neither come down again in rebirth nor have they moved forward. You can meet them. I don't want to name any scientists, but you will see them working on the very things they worked here. And they are advanced a lot. But if you go into an astral library and see the books there, they are not books with the pages like we have. The books have titles, and you can see what knowledge it contains, and then you draw a book from the shelf. I'm trying to make it a little more, look more physical. It's slightly different, but I think this will make sense. You draw a book on mathematics from the library, and there are no pages, but all the knowledge of mathematics is in it. And you grasp at any point of any knowledge that you were bringing with you from the physical plane, and you move forward from there. Every possible subject that you can think of is in the library there. It's a huge library. But there are institutions where people are developing some other arts and crafts, painting, art, and they are working with other artists, and they're communicating with other artists and sitting together. They're conversing. Some of the conversations over tea. They're having a cup of tea and a conversation which can last a few years of physical life. I saw two people having tea and chatting. I said, how long have they been chatting? Oh, about 5 years of physical time. There's such a big difference in the time sequence there. Now, I'm just giving you a little description. I don't want to go into all the details. You should see it yourself. And one can question this, that what I've just said could be a very great description of an imaginative mind. I could have very good imagination and produce all this narrative that I've just done. Which is true, because imagination is the source of the astral plane. We think imagination is unreal and imaginary. It's not imaginary except here. We make imagination imaginary in the physical plane. We make imagination a reality in the astral plane. So this is demystifying the whole concept that astral plane is another world or something. It's not a different world. It's a world from where our imagination in the physical plane is coming out from. And anything that you can imagine here can be a reality there. Anything. And there are lots of things that you cannot imagine here, because your imagination is limited to the sense perceptions you have captured here. There you have many more sense perceptions. Therefore your imagination runs wild and you create more. So the power of imagination should not be taken to be as imaginary as we think. You will discover that the astral plane is created by true imagination, not by physical imagination. Here, if I want to imagine that my little cane has become a cane of gold and diamonds, it won't become. My imagination is not strong enough. If I had just said the same words in the astral plane, it would have been gold and diamonds by now. Because the imaginative power of consciousness is the creative power. Now that sometimes confuses the philosophers. When they hear that imagination can create the astral plane, then it's an imaginary plane. It's just been created in a physical state through imagination. But when you see the reality of that, that's a more awakened state. And everything that you have had experience here in the physical plane has a replica, original of it. And this is a replica of it. When you see that, it doesn't look imaginary anymore. So it's a very interesting thing what the role of imagination is on our spiritual journey. And Great Master used to say, it's a power unknown to the physical world. the power of imagination, and we think it's unreal, it's imaginary, it's made up. The mind just makes up whatever it likes, forgetting that the entire experience we are having here is made up the same way. Except it doesn't move, it's too solid, and it has some laws built into it, and those laws hold it like it is. And the astral plane is free from those laws. Gravity is just one of the laws. The other law is consistency. Here, if I want to move to my room, here, I have to go through these steps of going through this hall and going there. I can't just sit here and say, I'm in my room. I can't do that there. What is that? I can imagine here. I can imagine I'm in the room. But I can't go physically. There, I can, in my entire body, go to the other room just by thinking about it. And when you realize that going to that room in your body, in your astral body, is a real way of transportation there, a real way of mobility. And then you compare this, you find how dull this place is, how slow this place is, how unpleasant this place is. A person who has had that experience, he will say, where have I got trapped into this slow place, this slow motion place here, where nothing is clear, my eyes can't see much, I don't have even clear vision. There you got the brightest vision. Colors look so bright in their purity, and they are colors that have never been seen here, and you can see them there. How do you account for that imagination? Some of you did an experiment with flowers and all that, which we'll do again. And you saw many of you saw flowers in imagination, in imaginary exercise here, which were drawn from the astral plane, because I push you into doing it during meditation and not during a physical imagination. So when you saw those colors, so many of you had never seen them before. You'd never seen things like that anywhere in the world. You saw things that don't exist here. So when these kind of experiences happen, then you know it's not a suggestive imagination that is creating that experience. But so long as psychologists and other so-called experts think that all this so-called experience can be generated in our head through our own autosuggestion and our own imagination, they say, this is your imagination running right. There are no such thing as astral plane, another plane. You just create those. I used to have these discussions at Harvard University, where the Department of Philosophy and Psychology was really engaged in this kind of activity. I mentioned to you 2 professors who were very much interested. When they did experiments, they were still trying to do experiments from the physical body and thinking that there is the physical energy level that can be kicked into those experiences. They were still thinking like that. Remember the names? Dr. Richard Alpert, who became Baba Ram Das, and there was Timothy Leary, another professor. Both were professors at that same time when I was there. They were both expelled from the university. I had no hand in that, of course. They were expelled because they were trying to show that there are other areas of experience that can be kicked in. Altered states of consciousness can be created by simple things like chemicals. And later on, Richard Alpert discovered they can be created without any chemicals. And he became Baba Ram Das. I understand that he also came to Taos here. I understand that he visited a temple here, an Indian temple. And after that he went to India and met so many of the sadhus in the temples there. But these 2 people, Richard Alpert converted himself to a seeker of Eastern mysticism after discovering that the chemicals were not needed. Timothy Leary, who was expelled from here, went and set up on an island, I don't know how many of you know, and set up a new church. It's called the Church of the Boo-Hoo. Why was it called that? Because he said, in truth, he has found out that there is no difference between the sublime and the ridiculous. He found that both come from the same source, and we are dividing it up. We set up these value systems. So these people, they were able to see that it's not imagination. What we call imagination is only imaginary here. Now, what is the role of imagination in the physical plane? When you will reach the astral plane, you will find that imagination is a very powerful entity. It's a very powerful function of consciousness and creates the astral plane. What is the role while you're still in the physical plane? The role that great master said was the best role of imagination, the physical plane, is that whereas by trying to pull your attention back to the center, it's very hard. People start rolling their eyes back. When they want to sit in the center, they can't distinguish between this body outside and trying to be in a small space in the head. So there's a conflict. That you try to think you are there. If you think you are there, you make an image of yourself, a little being which sits in front of you, and you're watching it. But then you say, no, I don't want to watch it. I am that. If you are that, then how can you be watching in front of you, yourself? Then you want to push back, and you get back into this body again. It's a real conflict in meditation. And a lot of people see it, but they keep quiet about it. When I was young, I didn't want to quiet about these things. So I would go straight to Great Master and say, this is the problem. Then he explained the power of imagination to resolve this problem. He said, when you want to be behind the eyes at the center, the best method is to imagine you are there, not pull yourself there. How do you imagine? By such imagination, like if I raise my stick there, like this, and I say, imagine you are sitting on top of that. Can you guys imagine? Of course. Does it cause stress on your head? Do you have to move your eyes? Of course not. It's pure imagination. Not imagination connected with the physical body. Pure imagination. So what he recommended was this. When he explained to me, he said, raise your finger like this. He actually demonstrated like that. Raise your finger like this, which I did. He says, now take it up above the head where you cannot see it. Because if you see it in front of you and say you imagine you are there, you are again making a picture of yourself. That's what you do with meditation. You try to make a picture of yourself and think you are at the center. And you are invariably in front of the eyes, not behind the eyes, when you make a picture of yourself. Therefore, you never go in. You think you are in the center. But if you take this finger like this and take it up where you cannot see it, now imagine you are sitting on top of it. There is no strain on the head. There is nothing in the eyes. And yet, it's pure imagination that makes you feel, I am hung up right there. If you can know that, close your eyes and bring it down. There you are sitting. Oh, you're still separated from the body. But you're not inside. You are on the finger. And you are still sitting outside of yourself. Bring it close. Here, jump inside. I did that. I brought myself up from there and brought it close next to the head, jumped inside. Then I felt I was myself inside and went right to the center. So what helped me in that was again the power of using imagination in the physical plane, right here. This is not use of imagination in the astral plane where it functions totally differently and creates everything. And that is why imagination works beautifully and it's the core of the creation, but it's not imagination as we think it is. Our imagination here doesn't create anything. It just creates a picture in our head. It's no more than that. It's truly imaginary. But the imagination of the astral plane is not imaginary. It creates.